We'll prepare YouTube.
Got it, Eddie.
Okay, yeah, thank you. All right, let's see. Just want to make sure this works. Okay. That's one. Two is record. All right, guys. All right. So, before we begin, I just want to announce that anything that is said in the chat or on the screen can be forwarded later or on a later date. So, Madam Chairs, you can take it over. Ms. Cleaver, I guess.
Oh, wonderful.
Right.
Who's first on this? I didn't.
The carbon neutrality people.
Carbon neutrality. So we have speakers from
DE Department of City Planning, which is Emily.
we have Amelia and we have
Clark.
David.
Amelia Clark.
Amelia
I
Clark
can't hear you.
or David Weissglass,
Let's see.
or did I miss somebody?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. David here. Amelia, are your mic all working? You're good?
I hope so. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Woof. New headphones here. Eddie, is it possible to share my screen here?
Yes, I'll make you host. Hold on. Let's see. Yes. Hey, it's all yours.
Bill says share is disabled. Eddie, are you sure? It still says host disabled attendee screen sharing. Okay, there we go. Can everybody see my screen? Hear me okay?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us this evening. My name is Amelia Clark. I'm a borough planner at the Department of City Planning's Brooklyn office. I'm also the liaison for Community Board 13. I'm joined tonight by David and Johanna, who will be monitoring the chat for questions. I think David wanted to say a word here.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is David Weissglass. I don't think I've met many of you yet or had the opportunity to do so. I'm the team leader for a number of South Brooklyn community boards. Recently kind of came into the position, so I'm really excited to continue working with you all. And I'll just give it back to Amelia here, who's your liaison and definitely is already researched quite a bit about the district. And we're excited about the opportunities that carbon neutrality can have for CB13.
Great, thank you. So like David mentioned, we're really excited to be sharing an overview of City of Yes for carbon neutrality, which is a proposal from the department to update the zoning resolution to help meet New York City's climate goals. After the presentation, we'll take any questions, but anything we can answer on the spot, we're happy to do so. And anything else we intend to bring back to the department, and we can get you more thorough written answers to anything else. So City of Yes for carbon neutrality is the first of 3 projects that the Department of City Planning is developing as part of the broader City of Yes initiative. 2 other proposals, economic opportunity and housing opportunity, will begin more public engagement later this summer. They are distinct and independent proposals which are being staggered the rest of this year and into next year. Many of the elements of the carbon neutrality proposal are urgently needed, aimed at delivering zoning relief to home and building owners who are trying to undertake smart retrofit projects to cut energy costs and help the environment, but are prevented by zoning from doing so. First, I want to take a minute to frame our conversation. It's important to emphasize that we are facing a climate emergency that is largely caused by global greenhouse gas emissions. Carbon dioxide makes up the vast majority of the country's greenhouse gas emissions, 80% in 2019. In 2016, world powers joined together to sign the Paris Agreement, which was a vision to cut greenhouse gas emissions in order to limit overall global warming to 2 degrees Celsius and ultimately prevent further environmental damage associated with climate change. Here in New York City, we've been implementing this vision through a number of initiatives intended to reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by the year 2050, or 80 by 50 for short. So what does it mean to be a city that is carbon neutral? Quite literally, carbon neutrality is the state of net zero carbon emissions, where the amount of carbon being sent into the atmosphere is equal to the amount of carbon being removed from the atmosphere. In this context, a carbon neutral city is one focused on reducing operational carbon emissions, with carbon neutrality being the ultimate goal. Reducing our energy needs, cleaning the grid, and electrifying buildings and vehicles are 3 major objectives towards carbon neutrality. To reduce our overall energy needs, we'll need to retrofit almost every building in the city to become highly efficient and reduce wasted energy. To clean the grid, we'll need to switch from fossil fuels to renewables like solar and wind. And to electrify all remaining energy needs, including our vehicles and our buildings, we'll need to move towards electrically powered technologies. As you can see on this chart, the key driver of our city's carbon emissions is our building sector. So when it comes to our research, we are building on a strong foundation. In 2012, DCP issued Zone Green, which was the first comprehensive overhaul of our zoning to allow for rooftop wind and solar. Today's carbon neutrality proposal is in many ways a follow-up to Zone Green, a chance to revisit older rules and update them in response to new science, technology, and regulations, including a focus on decarbonization coming from the Paris Agreement and 80 by 50, feedback from architects, engineers, and advocates, including, for example, Urban Green Council's Zone Greener report, and recent regulations. The Climate Mobilization Act at the city level includes Local Law 97, which will impose strict fines on large buildings that do not reduce their carbon emissions. And the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act at the state level set ambitious solar and energy storage goals for the city. Development of this proposal began a little over a year ago when Mayor Adams announced his vision for a city of yes. Since then, we've conducted extensive outreach with stakeholders across the city to help us ensure this proposal will be helpful to those who are trying to add solar, electric vehicle chargers, or heat pumps to their homes and businesses. We've held 4 open to the public info sessions, and we've partnered with the Urban Green Council to convene a group of technical and policy experts to review and provide feedback on an initial draft of the proposal. Along the way, we've engaged in conversations with partner agencies and local stakeholders regarding what zoning changes may be needed to help achieve our collective climate goals. From these conversations, we've identified a number of ways that zoning can be modified. Tonight, we'll review the 4 key goals the proposal seeks to support, as well as the 17 specific zoning changes we've identified to help achieve these goals. The first key goal is to support the decarbonization of our city's energy grid. Illustrated on this slide are initiatives already underway at the state or city level. These are not part of our zoning proposal, but they are the context in which our planning work is situated. By 2040, New York State is legally required to achieve a 100% renewably based energy grid, which means deploying large amounts of offshore wind and bringing in more clean hydroelectric power from upstate New York and Canada. It also includes putting all of our rooftops to work, generating energy across the city. To utilize the energy from offshore wind and from rooftop solar, our energy grid will have to become smarter, more decentralized, and more resilient to fluctuations with resources spread throughout the city. To support this cleaner, decentralized grid, we will need more local energy storage, essentially large batteries that will act as the glue holding this grid of the future together. To support the ongoing work of cleaning the grid, New York City zoning can help in 5 key areas. The first is rooftop solar. Rooftop zoning allowances should be modified to ensure there aren't any limitations holding us back from our solar goals. In many districts, there are limits on the amount of rooftop that can be covered by solar canopies. This proposal will ensure a roof can be completely covered by solar. 2 is parking. We need to take a similar approach for our city's 8,000 plus acres of open parking areas and ensure that solar canopies are always allowed over existing parking lots. 3 is community solar. One site that generates clean energy that is used throughout a neighborhood is considered a commercial use in our current zoning. This limits where community solar can be installed. Our proposal would allow community solar to be installed in all zoning districts, including large residential campuses, hospitals, schools, and colleges in residential districts where it's a great fit. 4 is energy storage. We need to ensure that safe, FDNY and DOB reviewed energy storage facilities are located where they are needed most. Energy storage is currently not allowed in residence districts where people need access to clean and renewable energy. Zoning must be updated to add specific rules for energy storage and help facilitate its rollout across the city. And 5, onshore wind turbines face very strict limits in today's zoning. This proposal will create a tool for future applicants to submit onshore wind facilities for a public review process with the City Planning Commission. The second goal is to eliminate fossil fuels from our city's 1 million+ existing buildings, almost all of which will still be here in 2050, the deadline for our carbon neutrality goals. These buildings are by far our biggest source of carbon dioxide emissions, so we'll need to retrofit virtually every single building. This involves retiring oil or gas-powered furnaces and boilers, replacing them with new, highly efficient electric systems, and improving the efficiency of exterior walls, windows, and roofs to keep the heat and cool inside. It's important to note 2 laws adopted by the City Council in 2019 and 2021 that are crucial here. For large buildings, which are defined as buildings 25,000 square feet or larger, Local Law 97 will begin to impose fines if they do not cut their carbon emissions. Fines will begin rolling out in 2024 and will increase throughout 2050. Second, Local Law 154 requires that all newly constructed buildings are electrified from the get-go. Fossil fuel-based equipment will no longer be allowed in new construction. Within this context, zoning can help support the decarbonization of buildings in 3 key ways. Electrification retrofits. Zoning can provide more flexibility to accommodate the increasing need for outdoor equipment, such as heat pumps, which cannot be located in building basements or cellars, to be located above the zoning height limit on building rooftops. 2, exterior retrofits. When someone is trying to add thicker insulation or reclad the building by removing an old facade and replacing it with a new, more efficient one, zoning should not prevent them from undertaking the project. 3, fixing zone green. The 2012 Zone Green Wall Thickness Deduction awards a small amount of additional floor area for better than code buildings. Here, it is updated to reflect the latest energy code and best practices for the future. With regard to cost and implementation of these retrofits, many funding sources at the federal, state, and city level are available. The NYC Accelerator is a program run out of the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice that helps connect property owners with technical and financial support to make these changes. The third goal we're seeking to support with zoning is decarbonizing vehicles. There are currently 2 million private vehicles registered in New York City, and less than 1% are zero emission. By 2035, New York State policy has indicated that all new vehicles sold in the state will need to be zero emission, and we need to prepare for that future. There are federal and state initiatives to help vehicle owners make the switch to electric at the local level. The zoning that regulates private parking and charging facilities needs to be updated to help New Yorkers make the switch to electric vehicles. Finally, this proposal also aims to support alternate modes such as bicycle, scooter, or mass transit. Zoning can help support this goal with 5 key changes. First, allowing commercial charging facilities in all commercial and manufacturing districts. They are currently prohibited in about half of the city's commercial districts. Second, allow building owners to designate a portion of their existing parking spaces as public electric vehicle charger sharing spaces. The same rules that currently apply to car sharing vehicles in existing parking garages or lots. Third, allow for more flexible use of public parking lots, public parking garages, and commercial accessory parking facilities by allowing car rental, car sharing, commercial vehicle storage, and public electric vehicle charging within these facilities as well. Fourth, expanding special rules currently in place in Manhattan today that allow for indoor automated parking facilities to be an option citywide. And lastly, update parking rules to acknowledge the need for public bicycle parking and allow bike parking facilities in commercial districts. Finally, our last goal relates to reducing our city's stormwater and solid waste and eliminating the carbon emissions associated with both waste streams. We can reduce stormwater runoff by promoting greater permeability on site. This means less water flowing to energy-intensive treatment plants. We can reduce the energy associated with hauling and processing garbage by reducing the amount. Up to 45% of our waste stream is organic material that shouldn't go to landfill and can be reused within the city. We can reduce the carbon emissions associated with our food by promoting more local food production on our city's rooftops. Within this context, zoning can help decarbonize our waste stream in 4 key ways. Firstly, clarifying our zoning paving rules to ensure that permeable paving, which allows water to infiltrate into the soil beneath it, is always allowed. Second, updating our zoning street tree requirements to allow for new high-performance tree bed types like connected tree beds and rain gardens. Currently, the zoning resolution does not account for composting or recycling. We are looking to add specific rules clarifying where these uses are allowed to help these sectors grow. Lastly, rooftop greenhouses are allowed on top of non-residential buildings, but to build one, current rules require you to obtain a certification from the chair of the City Planning Commission. By streamlining this requirement, we will allow DOB to review applications for building permits, cut costs, and simplify the process for those looking to grow food on rooftops. So I know that was quite a lot, but this concludes our overview of the 17 specific zoning changes we've identified to help support the larger goal of decarbonizing our city. As a citywide zoning text amendment, all 59 community boards are concurrently reviewing this proposal with their borough boards and borough presidents. In July, the City Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on the proposed changes. CB resolutions can be submitted to the CPC up until their vote in mid-September, where the commission will vote on approving or modifying the proposal. It will then pass to the City Council, where the City Council will have 50 days to review and ultimately adopt the proposed changes. So thank you so much for listening. We're happy to take any questions now. Like I mentioned at the beginning, anything we can answer on the spot, we're happy to do so. And anything else, we fully intend to bring back to the department, to our more maybe technical experts, and we can get you more thorough written answers. So thank you. It looks like, let's see, Christopher is first. Go ahead.
Actually, Michael was first. I was second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
I understand about all these initiatives and what they propose. Practically, it's impossible. Okay. I own a large business and I own quite a number of buildings in Brooklyn. And you want to convert, they want us to convert and they want us to change. And where is all this power coming from? How is this power going to be generated? There are so many ifs. You know, I would love to have $1 million in my pocket, but I don't. There are so many questions here that just cannot. Perfect examples. Years ago, the city started a recycling program. They produced too much cardboard. Now they have no place to put it. They have too much garbage. They have no place to put it. You know, we have all these initiatives that are all well thought out, but in the long run, they're not practical. They're not practical. As a business owner, as a property owner, as a person who lives in New York City, it's virtually impossible to achieve everything that the city wants to get done. You know, it'll probably get passed. I know that just because everyone else wants. But who's going to give up? They're asking the owners of the buildings and the owners of the building owners and to become carbon neutral. It's virtually impossible. You got to produce electricity. There is no way the city can produce enough electricity just with wind and solar and hydro. It's virtually impossible. And this Paris Accord, one moment, I'm done. This Paris Accord, they everyone was okay with it, but they let Russia, they let China, and they let India do what they want. They're producing more carbon than the United States cut down. So, you know, that's all I have to say. I'm sorry, but I wish we could do something like this, but it's virtually impossible.
Well, yeah, thank you for your comment. We definitely appreciate that there are a lot of obstacles to reaching these goals. I would say that the role of the Department of City Planning is just to set the rules of the zoning. So what we're trying to do with these 3 citywide text amendments is to allow for these changes to happen and to remove any restrictions that our department has put on any possibility, you know, for potentially making these changes that we think will be really beneficial to not just, you know, homeowners and business owners, but renters and everybody. Yeah, I don't know, David, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I really appreciate that, and it's a sentiment that, quite frankly, even as a city employee, I've shared many times. Right? I understand it. I think, you know, we're under no assumptions or illusions that we within the zoning resolution are going to, you know, solve the world's air problems. You know, what you say about the Paris Accord, I can't disagree with you. You know, things like that. That's outside of the purview of what we do, right? So this is a very, very, very small puzzle piece of a much larger puzzle. New York City is already pretty environmentally friendly when you actually look at the emissions that we have. And we've been a leader on a lot of these things. And I think we want to seek to continue to be that leader and hope that other cities follow suit. This is not going to be something that changes the world overnight. We recognize that, but we think that these tweaks are really intended to get out of the way of people who own property who want to either invest in solar, whether because they actually care about cleaning the grid or cleaning the air, or maybe because long term it's just a good investment. what we're seeking to do is just remove impediments that folks may find when they want to go into these things. Within the ZR and within this specific text amendment, there's no requirements placed upon anybody to change. This is often conflated with Local Law 97, which will have some requirements and will have some fines. But part of what we're doing here is to aid people in their efforts to actually comply, right? If you're seeking to comply with Local Law 97 or with any other requirements right now, you may find some difficulty in the zoning resolution. We want to make sure you don't have that difficulty anymore. So yes, to go back to it, we're not going to solve this problem overnight. We're certainly not going to solve, all the world's air or grid problems just by focusing in New York City. But we think even these small changes can have a large impact.
Thank you for that. Just to be quick, we're developing a new building across the street, and it's the largest geothermal building in New York City to be built. It's going to be 460 units, 430 units, plus 40,000 square feet of commercial, and it's fully geothermal. And we're making very small baby steps, but the proposal that this thing is, you're looking for pie in the sky. I'm sorry.
Understood, but again, I want to reiterate though, this proposal is not saying that we're going to be all 100 solar wind, right? A lot of that comes from the state level. A lot of it comes from different initiatives. What we're doing only in this little puzzle is removing impediments to do so. Whether or not it's pie in the sky, I can't disagree with you. I can't tell the future, right? You could very well be right about that, but we want to make sure that in our efforts to at least try to get there, zoning is not an impediment. But I very much heard what you're saying, though. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we have is Chris, then Jeff, and then Angela. Chris?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you, Eddie. I was reading everything and I'm looking at your website. Nice to see you mentioning about certain places about solar power and these agencies, but you're forgetting about a couple of agencies you left out. For starters, the mayor's office of people with disability. If we're going to talk about bikes and stuff, we need to remind that we do have seniors and disabilities that need to see more of this, because, or not just more, but concern, because some of the disabilities or seniors use certain equipments for any heart condition, oxygen things. We need to make sure it's safe. And if we're going to do any zoning, I hope you're still working on the zoning for making sure that stations where buildings are being built near a train station, that is still going to be still part of that zoning in the community boards. Because to be honest with you, I see it in all the other community boards, but I don't see the city agencies backing the community boards up. Because the community boards have done their jobs fantastically. I can vouch for 13. I can vouch for almost everyone in the other boards. But if the city's going to do certain zonings in transportation, I should have seen accessibilities at a train station, because I'm looking at it right now and I'm looking on your website. I really should see more about accessibility for seniors and people with disabilities, including our veterans. Thank you.
Next.
And I see I don't get an answer, so thank you.
Do you have an answer, Dave, or really?
I'm happy to respond. Sorry, I wanted to give opportunity there to make sure the comment was done. We appreciate that. Want to be clear, nothing that is actually being proposed here is going to usurp or mitigate any regulations set forth by other agencies, whether that's DOB, whether that's Department of Transportation, which has accessibility standards as well. I would like to follow up with you about that to get more into the specifics. And so I'd recommend, we'll put our emails in the chat, and then we can get a little bit more into the details to make sure that that's something that we have considered before anything is approved, though.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have is Jeff, Angela, and then Michael.
Okay, hello, everyone. My concerns are like Michael's about the electricity grid, but also I don't think city planning is talking to other city agencies. For instance, the heat islands that will be impacted by the 3 Mile boardwalk, what they want to build with the plastic over the concrete. And I'm reading a study by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, that says this heat island that they're going to create will increase energy consumption, elevate emissions of air pollutants and greenhouse gases, compromise human health and comfort, and impair also the water quality. So on one hand, you're trying to improve the neutrality of all these gases and infrastructure, and yet you're not talking to Parks Department on what they are planning to do. So it seems like one is against the other. Are you talking to Parks Department about their plans for the boardwalk? And they're creating a 3-mile heat island? Because they're going to be starting this next year. Thank you.
Appreciate it. To be quite frank, I need to dig a little bit more into that. What I can confirm here is that everything that we're proposing as part of this text amendment is including every other applicable agency, which I can't think of an agency that wouldn't be applicable, right? That wouldn't have something to say throughout every stage of the process, both in developing the overall goals and the overarching goals and proposals, down to the very nitty-gritty details of the actual text that's being proposed here. So I can get back to you certainly about the details of that specific proposal. That's outside of my area of expertise, to be quite frank, but be more than happy to follow up on that specifically. But I will say that members of our team have been consistently working with other agencies to ensure that anything that we're proposing is A, safe. I think that's the #1 priority. And B, is actually doable and feasible, right? And we know that that's a lot of work, which is why we know we need to take care of that ongoing communication. That said, we'll put our messages in the chat here and our contact information. And if you'd like to follow up about that specific proposal, I'm more than happy to do so.
Thank you. By the way, I contacted my co-op board, and because we have to put in a new range, and they said absolutely no electric ranges in our co-op. And we have 2 17-story buildings in Brighton Beach. So I don't know how that's going to affect the other local laws that are being proposed.
Yeah, that's a legal question, I would suppose. I guess private agreements or co-op agreements that I'm not totally sure about that, to be quite frank. I mean, what we're trying to do is kind of get out of the way for folks who would like to do something like that. But I can check on that as well. I think that, yeah, I can check with our council to make sure that that's something that can still be implemented across, the city as intended.
One thing I also want to say is we're happy to share our contact information, but we can also, more proactively send, answers to your questions to the board as soon as we can touch base with everyone else here. So you can reach out. We're more than happy to correspond with you directly, but we can also send out feedback for all of the comments and everything discussed tonight as well.
Great. Okay. All right. Next we have is Angela, Michael, and then Mark.
Hi everyone. Thank you for this presentation. Last week we just saw that the climate change is real. We all see New York orange. That's a new color, right? Dusty orange. So it's coming. We will be experienced more of it, and I'm proud that my city is doing something about it. We're kind of leaders there. We're ahead of the other towns, ahead of the other cities, but we are way, as a country, in total, we're way behind on it, and we're catching up. My question, though, I like the picture that you painted. I like to be carbon free. I like to be zero pollution, but it's hard to see and understand without the foundation. If you're asking us for approval and implementation of some law, we need to see and understand practicality of it, how it's going to be done. Because if we don't see the solution, if we don't see budget supporting those conversion to electricity, or improving the wiring system that go into the homeowners, that go into the business, how we can approve those steps. You see, because we may be setting up some burden for ourselves. Now you're saying you will be proposing small steps. So maybe we need to understand small steps that you're going to do and how those small steps will be funded. Because every time some change is happening, like recently we had this fight with the rats, right? Rats fight. So we need to take care of our garbage now a certain way. And it's great, but it's a financial burden to homeowners and especially to the business. So it will be nice to see more of how that will be done, but idea is great. I absolutely all for it. I just want to understand more on how the solar batteries will be installed, how and the multi-story residential building that have 700 units, how is that going to work? And how the wind will be harvested. We have lots of wind here. We're a windy peninsula. So let's see how that can be done. But who is going to pay for it? Where the funds are coming, is city paying, is state paying? I know that's not your department, but without understanding the entire process, for me personally, it will be hard to make a decision on those plans. And also, I want to second what Jeff is saying about the heat island and concrete. If we're talking about new zoning laws, it would be great to have a limit, like maximum limit allowable of new concrete area, because that's what brings the changes to our environment. That's what raises up the heat. So let's say if somebody plans to concrete 3 miles of the boardwalk, maybe that's something that needs to be discussed with environmental committee or maybe with Department of Building, because that's created dangerous heat zones. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Angela. I appreciate it. I'll answer kind of a respond in reverse order if that's okay. As for heat island and paving and the amount of concrete that we see in our cities, that's definitely something that's, being addressed even here in a limited extent, right? I think if you look on the screen here at proposals 14 through 17, it's allowing a little bit more or clarifying in certain cases where we can actually add permeability, right? Which helps a lot of that runoff of rainwater, and also helps for, you're right, our heat island issues. As to the first detail, I want to make sure I understand the question of kind of like how, right? How all of this is going to be done. I know I've said it and I sound like a broken record and I apologize for that, but again, what we're proposing to do here is not actually build or change anything or place additional requirements upon people. If anything, it's that we're trying to get zoning out of the way. So you're right that it is, a lot of it is, this is one puzzle piece, again, out of a much larger puzzle. And a lot of those are city-led initiatives, either coming out of the mayor's office or out of environmental protection, agencies. But we want to make sure that whether it's a public applicant or a private applicant doing something to their own property, folks don't have issues, impediments, or significant burdens where they'd say, well, I wanted to add solar, but there's so many restrictions that I either can't do it, or it's just too much of a resource dump for me to actually go through with it. That's what we're trying to do, is to get out of the way. But my understanding of the question of how this is going to be done is some of the details of, okay, we allow folks to build solar. Where can that go? How high can that go? We want to allow, bike parking rules to be released a little bit or relaxed a little bit. Where can that be? Am I understanding your question correctly, Angela?
I guess I understand that's a process. I just don't want to rush with approving anything. At least I understand that there's going to be a solution to it, because it seems to be you at the very beginning of some big process. So I'm still not clear what is it we're approving and what you ask of us to approve, what kind of changes we're approving. If it's just conversation in general, okay, that's fine. In general, that's a lovely idea.
Oh, okay. I don't want to. I want to give other folks the opportunity to speak as well. So we can maybe continue that conversation offline. But again, I want to reiterate: this is not the beginning of some big process as far as DCP is concerned, right? So the city as a whole, as Amelia said, is undergoing a number of initiatives, many of which are simply public, applications and publicly led initiatives for, I don't know, offshore wind, whatever it may be. And what we're trying to do is just change the rules to get out of the way. If this is approved, it doesn't mean DCP is going to go ahead and start building X or Y, right? It's in fact the opposite. It means now folks will have less of a hurdle to actually implement any changes that they choose to implement. And so that's what we're seeking to do. But nonetheless, we can continue this conversation offline.
Thank you so much.
Okay, all right. We have 4 more questions because we have another part of the meeting. It's going to be Michael, Mark, Craig, and then Pat Singer. Okay. So go.
Oh, Craig.
Okay, thank you, David, for that last piece. Amelia, thank you for your presentation. David, for the last couple of paragraphs that you presented. There's no question that your job here this evening is just to tell us that DCP actually wants to make it easier for businesses and multiple dwelling units and homeowners by taking away a lot of the red tape that that we go through when dealing with the city and the zoning issues. You're not solving everybody's problems, but you're trying to take away the problems that we will have trying to comply with the new laws. Now, I'm president of a very large co-op, 2,600 apartments, also here in Coney Island. And we've been involved with this for quite a while, dealing with New York City Accelerator and many other engineers and so on. The added issue that we have is that we are basically on an island because we don't deal with Con Edison. We have our own power plant. Okay, we're fully self-sufficient. So that's another set of issues and another set of problems, because any of the funding that is allowed currently is only if you're paying into the grid. Where I live, we do not. We're self-sufficient. It's important that being taken into account as well, because we've just completed a study that if we put solar on all our 5 buildings and we cover all our parking lots with solar panels, we still won't have anywhere close to what we need to operate our buildings. Now, this problem is ours, not many others, because there are very few local power plants here. But the important thing is, if Con Edison is not ready, okay, if Con Edison, certainly even these days, we've had a couple of very warm days in the spring, and there were rolling blackouts here in Coney Island and in Gravesend before the heat even came into full summer blast. Yeah. So there's a lot of issues with that as well. I'll leave this with you. We're looking at, while our portion actually starts in 2035, because we're a Mitchell-Lama co-op, and we have to reach full compliance in 2050. We're facing $9 million a year in fines if we don't get our numbers into line. So again, we've been very involved and so on, but the issue will always go back to Con Ed. When will they be ready? Because they're certainly not now.
Understood, and I appreciate that comment. That helps us kind of have a better understanding of what different residents and owners have in different situations, right? Not everyone's a co-op owner, but for those situations, we certainly need to make sure that that's taken into consideration. Like you said, what we're doing here is intended to make it a little bit easier to comply with the requirements of Local Law 97. You said you've been working with the New York City Accelerator. I put that link in the chat. That's really the number one place to go for that kind of financial support. And there's also assistance and consultation available from the State Energy Agency, a number of programs to subsidize retrofits and electrification projects. And the state also offers tax incentives for solar and things like that. There's also existing programs, a lot of which came from the Inflation Reduction Act funding, which is currently in rulemaking, and it's a program designed at the federal level, and that'll be available to New Yorkers soon. So I can put some more links if possible there. I apologize to hear about that, the difficulty of, even if you were to do all this solar, it would still not cover everything that's necessary. Con Ed kind of rolls into the response I had previously about working with other agencies. Con Ed is not an agency necessarily, but that's still obviously a significant partner that we can't leave out of the loop. And so we have been speaking with them. And I think part of what we're trying to do also is, a lot of these are for individual owners, so it's not going to change the world overnight, but nonetheless, it could go into more of a green energy grid and a greener system, and using renewable forms of energy could also decrease the load that Con Ed needs to provide. And so that's also something that we're trying to do little by little. And so what we're doing is hoping to get out of the way a little bit, and we can provide the resources that we can for funding and other things.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
The last three are going to be Mark, Craig, and Pat Singer. Mark.
Thank you for taking my question. It seems to me you're on one hand saying we're trying to get out of the way, but your presentation is very quick to point out how, well, there's other agencies that's going to fine you a great deal of money anyway. And I don't know if, no offense to you, you were just put up as the simple, easy face to be dumped on. And then at one level, well, it's really not us. It's this other law. It's this other agency. You're not really helping the question. I can give you, my cousin owns an 8-unit building. One of my cousins owns an 8-unit building, half of which is family. And she had just the upgrade of the electrical into her building. She's still not anywhere near, she has gas for heating, but that was $82,000 after going through a bunch. Doesn't include any wiring to units where she would have to, if she's going to put electrical. Now she does have enough electricity for it, but I have another cousin on Beverly, and they want $100,000 per unit to run enough electricity down to the basement from each unit, that's a co-op, in order to support changing from gas and electrical. And this is just not practical, it seems, in this area. We had a presentation last year from National Grid, who is only gas, at least in my area, but in other areas of the state is also electric. And they're in no way prepared for the increase in electrical consumption. So without something saying, look, we've done X, Y, and Z, and there's a timeline long before the fines for not doing it, which, okay, it's not your agency. But again, I think you nice people were just stuck up here because it's easy to put we're just getting the impediments out of the way. But the reality is the system still will either somebody has to pay, well, always somebody has to pay, or it's just not going to happen. And eventually a revolt against whatever politicians group, whatever, that decided that every homeowner has to come out with $150,000, of which they get a 2% loan for a third of it. Some of us are close to retirement. I don't have that kind of money to put in to redo the house, pull out the boilers, the oil tank, the stove, et cetera, et cetera. even if I could get enough electricity on my street. Anyway, so I just think it's short-sighted and whatever. I don't know what else to say. Thank you very much for you listening.
Appreciate it, Mark. Yeah, no, it's a completely understandable sentiment. And I'll be quite frank, in a sense, you're right. Right? In a sense, you're right. We don't have control over the laws that are passed at the state level or at the city council level that didn't directly involve DCP, right? You know, certain local laws were not here. And so basically what we said at DCP was, okay, this law is going to be in effect. This is going to be a burden for a lot of people. That's fully recognized. We're going to have financial support too, but where are there other areas that increase those costs, right? They both increase the cost in the hard line and increase costs because time is money, right? And there are extra burdens that come in the way of actually achieving certain goals, right? And so the expenses that one has are not simply the expenses for implementing and building solar energy. It's also the expenses that one may have to go to DCP and apply for an expensive permit. You know, that's what we want to get out of the way. Or the expenses and issues one may have where you say, well, if I were to cover, you know, maybe not in your situation or your cousin's situation, I recognize, but in other situations, I'd like to, you know, cover my entire roof with solar because then I'd actually have the opportunity to meet these requirements. But then zoning says, no, you can't do that. That's an additional cost as well, because then you'll need to meet it elsewhere. And so that's what we're trying to do, is get out of the way. You're absolutely correct. We are not the agency to decide what these laws are. And you're also correct that my answers to a lot of those questions are, I apologize, and my hands are kind of tied because I'm limited to the agency that I'm in. And I appreciate that you respect that and understand that as well. But basically, DCP kind of looked at the mirror and said, okay, here's a scenario that homeowners, property owners are faced with. What can we do, right? What are the small things that we could do to at least decrease the burden even ever so slightly? And that's what we're trying to do here.
Okay. Next is Craig, and then last is Pat Singer.
Thank you. So David and Amelia, this was a great presentation, but only if there's an underlying understanding that what you're doing is actually changing the zoning resolution. And I would suggest at some point along the way that you include some kind of examples of the actual zoning resolution language changes that the department is going to be proposing. I know that they're on the website. I read them for myself. I think they're all great. But I think when you make a proposal in this manner, you're giving the impression that you are doing more or trying to do more than you actually are capable of doing. So if you just kept it simple and stuck to the actual zoning language changes, I think half of this conversation would have gone away. I have two quick questions for you on that subject, because I did a lot of work on solar in my old district, Community Board 6, where we had the Solarized CB6 program, and it became a model for the rest of the city. We had a microgrid study done of Red Hook years ago. I think Coney Island could benefit from its own. All this was paid for with state grant money from NYSERDA and the Power Authority. And I think there's a lot of potential down here in sunny southern Brooklyn. My two quick questions are, one, if you are looking to make it easier to do rooftop solar coverage, how are you getting around the fire department's requirements for the horizontal and the vertical lanes on the rooftops, which they claimed to us at the time that they needed for emergency access? That's my first question. My second question is on the fines that will be levied in the future from Local Law 97. Is there any kind of specific earmark as to where that money is going to go to, or is it just going to be dumped into and lost in the city's general coffers? So could that money, for example, be used to advance some type of solar goals or other goals that are in agreement with what the overall goals are here?
Appreciate that, Craig. And I very much also appreciate diving into the actual text there. I see Amelia going to a different slide here that I think can be helpful. Amelia, do you want to speak to the solar a little bit?
Sure, I could do my best. I think the first thing of note is that as it currently stands, there's only a certain percentage, I'm sure as you know, of the rooftop that's allowed to have solar. And so part of this citywide zoning text, of course, will allow solar over the entirety of the rooftop, capping at a 15-foot max height from the top of the roof, which would allow, I think, FDNY to pass underneath. Is that the case, David? Maybe you could speak further to it.
That's my understanding as well. I think it's shown here in the issue, right? It says that 6 foot in certain districts, also conflicts with FDNY's need for about 9 feet of clear headroom. That's my understanding. Nonetheless, I'll make sure that I go back to the team and go back to the text itself, right?
Sorry, it wasn't the canopy that I was concerned with. It was the actual rooftop installations, the ones that are low lying, where they claim that they needed horizontal and vertical lanes for roof access.
Oh, I see. I understand. That very well may still be the case. Again, nothing that we're proposing here is usurping any requirements that any other agencies have for safety, right? Okay. Immediate safety is obviously the #1 concern. And so I think this was basically my understanding, and I don't want to speak out of hand, so I'll confirm all this, but my understanding is that this was our way where we looked again at ourselves and said, okay, within zoning, what can we do to actually increase the amount of solar energy that buildings can take advantage of? While still maintaining all safety standards for other agencies. And this is the way that we could do it. I don't know if there was any way that we could actually get away from that pathway requirement from FDNY for low lying. So my understanding and my assumption, quite frankly, is that that would remain, that those requirements would remain for solar low lying. As to your question about local law 97, I'll be quite frank, and to be honest, I don't know. I will make sure that we go back there, but my assumption again would be that any fees and fines levied for a purpose has a nexus to the actual issue at hand, and that those fines and those fees and that money will actually be going towards ensuring that our grid is clean and that it is capable to handle all the requirements. But again, I'll check again with our team on that.
Thank you. We just want to make sure that if the money is going to be levied from taxpayers for failure to comply with these rules, that any money that is levied goes towards further compliance with the rules and isn't lost in the city's coffers.
Understood. Certainly. Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Pat.
I was around during Hurricane Sandy, and after Sandy, we had many meetings with the state and the city, and we came up with different ideas. Solar paneling was one of them for the future, and I'm all for that. I wish I could see it happen now, and this whole decade has gone by, and we haven't made a move in that direction. But what bothers me sometimes is the city talks out of both sides of its mouth. When we build new construction now, they limit parking. You keep talking about the public parking area would hold electrical meters, bicycle storage, all this other stuff, but you're against having parking for buildings. I think that's a wrong attitude. Second thing, the city has encouraged homeowners. They paved over half of this city here to cut curbs in and put their cars on their front lawns and everything. So you're talking about paving to make it the water easy to go in, but the city has to get its act together. And you haven't started anything. We're not going into the hurricane season now. You've done nothing with all those meetings to do something about what happened in the past so it doesn't happen in the future. And yet this is a very ambitious plan. It's going to take a lot of money, but what are you doing now to make our lives better? Understand? Thank you.
Understood, and I appreciate that. I mean, within the context of the zoning for carbon neutrality text that we have, we're restricted by process, and I think that's actually maybe a particularly apt analogy for what we're trying to do here. I'm not going to deny or disagree with you that we may not have been properly prepared for previous hurricanes, right? But I will say that that's something that we're trying to learn from. There are many folks, out in the world who agree that if we could implement some of these changes and do it just right now, then we'd like to do so, and that would be the case. But community engagement is a very important part of what we do. It's not only required in the charter, but it's something that we really do firmly believe in, because we know that there's going to be unintended consequences that come out, right? And so this is a process that, as I said, or as Amelia, I believe, said, the vote is going to be in September, and then City Council will vote on it after that. It takes time, right? It takes time, and that's unfortunate because maybe if some of these things were implemented beforehand, then that would be able to have a larger impact. But we want to make sure, and we've gotten a lot of great questions here tonight that are good examples of that. We want to make sure that anything that we're actually proposing, which seems great on the face to those of us who study the zoning, text, actually makes sense to folks that are living every single day on the ground, right? And folks like yourselves. And so, we recognize that a number of city agencies need to, get things together and provide some initiatives that are a bit more significant. But our engagement processes are what they are, and then we'll make sure that whatever final proposal is approved, if it does get approved, it needs to go through a whole process, actually takes into account the concerns that we've heard from people who will be living, in the city every day, and not just those of us within agencies.
If I could just also really quickly, Pat, speak to your first point about feeling like there's a discrepancy between encouraging or discouraging adding parking. I think all of the pieces of this proposal that relate to parking relate to existing parking lots or existing parking garages. Of course, DOT has jurisdiction over the curbside parking, so that's not included in this, or not included in sort of our efforts to encourage more opportunities for vehicle sharing or electric vehicle charging stations. But these proposals apply to parking spaces that are already there. Of course, we'd love to have solar canopies covering every single parking lot, so that it's at least dual purpose in use. Yeah, I hope that clarified a little bit your
point is,
earlier
there's
point.
buildings being built every day, new buildings going up. You should be planning for the future right now. If you're going to use that parking space for other purposes, make sure there's parking space, the public parking area, that you could put your electric meters in, or whatever you're going to do there for the future. You just can't close off the opportunity to do that sort of thing. I think it's great, but you're building without any parking space like that to use.
Understood. I think I have a better understanding of the question now. I appreciate that clarification. In many situations, I would argue in most situations, the parking being put in now is not for electric use or for flexible use or car sharing, or does not have, automated parking or enough room for bike parking, which are all initiatives that do help the climate emergency. And I think that's kind of what a lot of those reactions are to the existing situation. Now, I think planning for the future is kind of what we're intending to do here. And that's by saying, okay, there are certain situations in which parking actually does make quite a bit of sense, right? And we've seen a lot of buildings go up with parking that is in excess of the city's parking minimums, indicating that whether or not there's a minimum, the parking is probably going to get built. Now, if the parking is going to get built, like you said, how can we make sure that it's something that's a bit greener? And these are some of the initiatives that we would hope would be implemented in the future, as well as in existing parking spaces.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay. All right. So that concludes all the questions and answers that we have right now. Now we have to put a motion to this, whether or not we agree with this text amendment. So, Madam Chair, Mary, I guess you're the best.
Eddie, mind to
Yes.
clarify something very quick? Now, going back to the initial timeline that Amelia put on, there's a public hearing on July 26th. You're in the middle of, I believe, your 60-day review period. This is a little bit of an interesting one. This is not your typical ULURP. So this is a situation in which the city will definitely consider all input, motions, opinions, whether it be through the community board process or whether it be through public input, up to the vote, even if it's past the 60-day period. So I just want to clarify that the 60-day period is technically there in the situation, but we recognize many boards are going to need more time. And if that's the case, that's totally understandable. And even past the hearing itself, before the vote, the commission will see all the motions that are made, even if it's, a week before the vote itself in September.
Can't hear you, Mary. Yes, you got to hit the unmute there. Nope. Can't hear you.
So what I
now
said was
There you
technology.
go.
Now you can hear me. Now technology only works so far. So what exactly are you looking for us at this point?
I assume that's a question for me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or
You-
Amelia, or
Right. So it's really up to you, right? So there are some boards who, knew right away that they want to make this recommendation with these details and that motion, and they've sent them in already. And if that's what you want to do, that's totally fine. There's others that wanted to maybe push it to, have a little bit more time to discuss, maybe have another presentation by DCP or, get some of the answers to some of the questions you brought up here. That's your opportunity to do so also. So really the time here is yours. If you feel comfortable making a motion tonight with whatever details you'd like to include, that's certainly your right. But if you'd like a little bit more time, you certainly do have it.
okay. Can we poll the members of the committees that are here, or I can share my thoughts on this item? All right. I think that one of the things that Michael Russo described, and which is I've been seeing, is right now I'm seeing this building boom. All right, in our corner of and our adjacent community board's corner of Brooklyn, of South Brooklyn. All right, on Crapsey Avenue, it looks like 40-story buildings are going up. Excuse me?
Marion, just go ahead.
All right, are we being hacked again? All right, in Brighton, we all know about the 40-story building that's going up very, very quickly. Is that going to be an electric building, or are we going to be able to rewire 60 and 70-year-old buildings to accommodate electricity? All right, like Jeff pointed out, I know my 60-year-old building, my condominium that has 320 different apartments, is no way able to handle any more electric, period. All right, so electric stoves and whatever else they can think to be electric. All right, so I'd like to hear from other members of the committee. Jeff, you're talking and you're muted.
And Joanne, want to say something? Joanne?
Joanne, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I just wanted to say, we're done at the end of June for the summer. So if we vote on this today, it then comes before the board and we have a decision. I don't know how long you want this to go on, or if it would do any good, because it's all been discussed out and would be discussed again at the board meeting, and then we would have our final vote. That's my opinion. Go forward with it.
Right, and then we could vote on it from what has just been advised us. We can have more time to discuss it in September or October or whatever. There's a part of me that says it's a very, very good idea. My whole idea is this very practical to implement? That's my question. And I notice a lot of people are nodding with me. It's wonderful. I would love to see carbon print reduced here. I would also like to be able to breathe the air a little bit more often, but that's another story, right? I know this city is very polluted at this point, and city planning is offering a solution to the problem that should have existed maybe 50 years ago. Right? So I will entertain any kind of motion at this point. Does anybody have a motion to offer?
I think we should shelve it until we get a better, like a full board vote.
I didn't catch that, Michael.
I said, I think we should shelve it until we get a full board vote.
Well,
We can make a recommendation, but it's gonna go before the full board. And it's better we get a full board vote than sorry. Better we get a full board vote than us.
And a
voting.
committee vote. Yeah, I agree with you on that, but generally, these are the people here that are more in tune to land use issues.
Yes, but didn't Lucy say that committee cannot make a recommendation or send a letter out or support it without going before the full?
Without going to the board anyway, right?
Yeah, we're gonna go
But
before the whole board.
basically, what I'm hearing now is that this committee of two different committees is unable to take a stand.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
before it could go before the full board, they would have to do a presentation before the full board so the other members could understand what's going on.
Right. And that would take
Doesn't
all
make
night.
any sense.
Well, they're supposed to be here today if they're interested. And for the people who cannot make it, it will be on, what do you call it, YouTube, the link, so that they can review it again to hear the questions and answers from them. To do it with a whole another hour, as you can see, this took an hour just to present.
It took an hour and 20 minutes.
Thank you.
All right.
It will
Without
take
some of
longer
our
than 50.
board, Eddie and some of
Yeah.
our board members would come up
Mhm.
with some really interesting statements.
Yes.
It would probably take into midnight to get everything out of the way. We still have two more presentations to deal with.
Yes.
I believe we should shelve it until a full board vote. Don't make any recommendation.
All right, are we prepared to sit all night?
What I don't understand, Madam Chair, is why this is different than anything else that comes before any other committee. The committee studies the problem, reads about the problem, or the positions, makes its recommendation to the board, and then the board votes. No letter is
Right.
going to go out before the board votes. Why is this any different?
Because this is not, to me, this is not isolating just one piece of our board. This is something that's going to reflect through the whole community, the whole Brooklyn, in fact, the whole city. What they're proposing is to basically change the way we do things. All right? I don't know, Wabash, you're not going to be able to electrify all your stoves. All right? I know
But
what
that's
of you,
not what they're here for.
but they're here to take away, to reduce the carbon footprint.
No, that's not what they're here for. Not at all. They're
Okay?
here tonight to take away the minutia that we have to go through as building owners or co-op owners or condominium owners in dealing with the city. That's all that they're here for. They have nothing to do with local law 97, but what they're trying to do is make it easier for homeowners, renters, everybody to get stuff done. Has nothing to do with local law 97 in actuality. They didn't pass it. They're not asking us for approval. It's already passed. All they want to do is take away the red tape that the city piles higher and deeper every other year.
Mike, can I say something?
To the right? Does the
Mike, can I
committee-
say something?
All right, Michael, What were you saying?
No, with this quick example of local law 97 and what they are proposing, it's another money grab for the city. I'm facing this thing with local law 97 with the building I own. I have to retrofit my building. It's going to cost me a ton of money to either retrofit or live with the fine. So for me, it's just like another money grab for the city. That's how I see it.
Agree, but all they're here
They're
to
going to do it no matter what. They're going to do it no matter what.
Yeah,
But
but
Michael,
do these people have anything to do with that? No.
no. They're taking away the red tape and all the stuff that you got to go through and the dances that you have to do in order to move forward. Has nothing to do with local law 97. In actuality,
All right, I didn't get that impression, but I could
Okay.
be wrong.
all right,
Alright,
David,
Right.
tell me.
Okay,
I don't want to impede on your conversation, so I can help clarify if possible, but I know this is your conversation, so.
Okay, I'll
Please,
rephrase that.
Excuse me,
What
I
are
thought I
you
was
here
the
for today,
chairperson.
David?
Michael, I thought I was the chairperson of this, whether you like it or not. David, could you please clarify
Wow,
it?
Marion, are you serious?
I am.
Oh, shit.
Shame on you.
Okay, I
All
would
right.
like to hear him clarify it.
Michael, I appreciate that, and I apologize for any confusion here. And Craig, I believe, did put the text itself in the chat. It gets into the nitty gritty, it gets into the weeds for sure, but we encourage you, if you have the stamina to do so, please do so. It's out for everyone. That is absolutely correct. This is not local law 97. Whether or not this text amendment is approved has nothing to do at all with whether or not local law 97 continues to be implemented. Local law 97 will be implemented if this is approved. It'll be implemented if this is not approved. It'll be implemented if this is approved with modifications. That is a separate entity. What we're doing here is basically saying, to give an example, okay, I'm a property owner. I want to implement a little bit of solar on my building, right? I want to do that. Right now, if I go to the city, there's a lot of limitations on where I can do that. This is just one example. There's a lot of limitations on where I can do it and how I can do it. And there's a number of financial and other burdens that make it difficult for me to do so, even if I want to, right? All these different applications and whatnot. What we've said is, okay, well, if it's safe for you to do so, and if you're able to do so, then we're going to make it a little bit easier for you to do so. A separate situation, my next door neighbor wants to do the same thing. They want to put solar on their building. For whatever reason, it's not feasible. It's determined not to be safe. Or let's say it's a separate owner who just says, you know what, all these things passed that make it easy to do solar, but I just don't feel like it. I don't want to do solar. That's fine. That will remain the case whether this text amendment is approved, and it'll remain the case whether this text amendment is not approved. This is for folks who would like to actually take action on some of these things because their situation either calls for it, and that could be because of local law 97, or it could just be because they wanted to. But in situations where an owner does not want to actually engage in any of these 17 proposals, they don't want to build solar, they don't really care about electrifying the building in the way that's going to be allowed much more easily by zoning, they don't need to do so. That'll continue to be the case even if this is passed. So I do hope that clarifies, and I'll allow you to continue speaking without me.
One more question.
Okay,
New buildings that are going up.
Excuse me. As first vice chair, Marion, I'm a little.
You overrule me,
okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's do a motion. Let's take the vote and let's move on.
All right, I want to make the motion. Okay?
Go ahead, Joanne.
All right, I make a motion that we, I don't know exactly what it is, that we approve this text amendment. Is that what it is? Is that how we word it? I'm not
Yes.
quite. Okay, I make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second. I'll second it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Roll call, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair. Yes,
Hello?
can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I would like to abstain at this point.
Oh, okay, let me, Jeff, I'm just gonna do the roll call, okay?
Okay,
Marion Cleaver, you said you abstain,
yes.
okay? Angela Kravchenko,
I'm sorry, I didn't see text amendment in agenda. I don't know what we're voting. I'm abstained.
Oh, we're voting on what we discussed all this
No,
hour.
I know, but we're talking about text amendment. Where is the
Let
text
her-
amendment? It
Wait a
wasn't
minute.
in the agenda, so I'm
Excuse
abstaining.
me, let's not have any cross conversations. Vote the way you feel you want to vote.
Abstain.
okay, abstain. Michael Russo,
I vote no.
thank you. Jeffrey Sanoff,
No,
Michael Silverman,
Yes,
Pat Singer,
Abstain.
Jack Subin,
Was here.
yeah, I see him,
Yeah,
Jack.
there he is.
Here, I'm here. I'm just having
Hi.
technical difficulties.
By driving.
Hi.
I vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Gloria Watkins,
Yes. A
Okay.
vote yes.
thank you, okay. Joanne Weiss? Joanne?
He was here.
Yeah, she was,
move on to the next and get back to her.
okay. Tatiana Siegel? I just saw her too. Tatiana?
I see her. Yeah, she's muted.
Okay, this is not, okay, I'll come back.
Eddie, you don't have the power to unmute
I got
people?
Wesley.
But they're not accepting it. They have to accept
Oh.
to unmute. So
And that's Wesley?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going back to Joanne White.
Joanne
I'm
said-
here, yes, I'm sorry.
But these aren't members of this committee.
There's
Your
land-
names on the housing committee, I thought now.
No, it's both housing and
This is land
land
use.
use.
This is land use and housing, joint.
It's joint committee.
Yes.
Hello.
Joanne, you voted yes, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, and Tatiana Siegel?
What are we voting for right now?
Yeah.
No,
The text amendment that was before the board. And,
okay, I'm voting for.
okay.
We're not voting for the text amendment.
Okay. So what is the count, Hannah?
So just two
Let's move on, Eddie, and we get the count later.
Okay. All right. So the next one, we're going to change the agenda because Anna Killian from DDC has to leave. I don't know if you're still here, Anna. I'm sorry that we made you wait this long.
And that's okay, and I really appreciate you squeezing us onto your agenda.
Sorry,
tonight.
we have to wait.
It's okay. However, unfortunately, the design team wasn't able, they had prior arrangements for tonight, so they weren't able to stay on to the call to give you guys an update on the Marlboro houses. So I'm asking if you could put us on the next.
Oh, wait. I do have your presentation. You want to post it up? I don't know if you can go through it, if you understand it or not.
I don't think I will be able to share that, any of those updates for for today. I don't know if I have anybody on the call at all for GDC that will be able to do that. I apologize, they stayed on as long as they possibly could. It is just a general update to the board, so you can feel free to share that presentation if everybody wants to take a look at it and send us any questions. We welcome them.
Yeah, Kayla Hom from DDC. I think that actually might be the best course of action. You know, the presentation's pretty self-explanatory for an update.
Do you want me to post it? I mean, I have it right now. If you want me to share it.
But they don't want to discuss it, so why can't we just?
You could review it if you would like, the board would like to go through the presentation right now, but I won't be able to answer any of the.
Okay.
What's the point? What's the point?
Yeah, yeah.
Eddie, let's save it to the next meeting
Well, next meeting won't be until September.
in September. Okay.
So
Yeah.
maybe they'll have more to tell us then.
Well,
Can we at least share it?
the first topic, yes, we will share it, but like I said, there will be any questions and answers until September. Okay, so I can share that tomorrow.
Good.
All right. So, all right,
I have the
and
vote. Sorry.
Hannah,
Yes, it's 3 abstentions, 6 in favor, and 2 opposed.
So pass.
Yes.
okay. It'll be,
So now
it'll be brought
full
to the full board on the 28th in person. So remember, whatever is said here can change because the full board has their opinion too. We will invite the city planning to come again.
Can I ask that, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, the gentleman that was speaking before
Yes, city planning.
at the meeting, because I think he
Yes.
can relate to everybody better than most people.
Thank you. City planning people will be there. We will invite them again to answer any additional questions from the board. And we'll have that on the 28th of June. All right. Since we are not going to speak about the what do you call Marlboro project, we're going to go directly into Coney Island Phase 3. This is under Pete Singer and Tatiana Siegel because this is housing. So, Win, are you still there?
Hey, Eddie. Yep, I'm here.
We can't hear. All right, so I'm gonna make you a co-host. So you have any pictures to show us? We'll be happy to see them.
Great. Thank you. Let me share my screen here. Yeah, thanks, guys. I'll be fairly quick. I know it's late. This is really just an update, similar to what we did on phase 1 and phase 2 of these Coney Island sites. I just wanted to come and share with you some preliminary design work we've done on phase 3, share some thoughts on it, give you an update on timing. But before I did that, I was hoping I could also just take 2 minutes and just update you on phase 2, which most of you know, it's this site here between 16th and 17th on Surf Ave. It's currently under construction. We're now targeting a completion date at the end of this year. And you know, it's progressing pretty quickly. We're putting in kitchens. We're putting in storefront on the first floor. We're putting in flooring in some of the units. The halls are being finished. We have mock-ups going on. So things are progressing relatively quickly on site, which is great. So what that means is we're going to be launching the marketing on this at some point towards the end of the summer. What we would love to do before we go live with Housing Connect, which is that citywide housing process, we'd love to host or co-host with you guys, or use you to help us distribute flyers or event invites. We'd love to do some community events just to ensure that the community knows about this housing opportunity before it goes live. That's something we've done on like almost all of our projects. We feel strongly about it, so that the second it goes live, folks will know about it first. And part of what we'll do too is we'll give instructions to people on how to actually apply through Housing Connect, which is a pretty complicated. I shouldn't say that. It's I probably struggle with it. Some people would be fine, but it is a complicated process. So some of the events we want to hold are just educational and to walk people through it. So that's just something that I wanted to share with you guys. Hopefully, we can work together on that. I think there's a lot of benefit if we can work with you guys. So that's just a quick phase 2 update. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about phase 2 that I can address before I jump into phase 3?
It looks good.
bear with me one sec. All right, so phase three, similar to what we did on phase two, we're working our way through design development right now. We are in probably about 50% of the way through design development. For some context, this is the site that we're talking about, phase three, which is the middle site. It sits right across from the ballpark. I don't have to share Coney Island context with you guys. You guys are well aware of the context. But just another look at the site. Number 5 here is phase 1. Number 6 is phase 2. And as you guys know, there are a number of other sort of newer buildings in the neighborhood. So just wanted to give you a sense of what we're talking about, where the site is. This is the site from the water, which is here, which is the white block. Won't actually look like that, but just wanted to, again, sort of make sure everyone knows what we're talking about. And the site is the middle site. So on the left here, you have phase 1. Phase 1 was completed about a year and a half ago, that kind of thing. We fully leased it up. It's 100% occupied. Phase 2, which is all the way to the right, again, is finishing at the end of this year, and we'll be launching the marketing towards the end of the summer. So we're talking about the middle site, which is sort of the missing piece, which is a currently surface parking, and it has the the HHC hospital space behind it. This is a conceptual rendering of what the building is likely to look like. We are still working on refining it a bit, but wanted to give you a sense of sort of the color palette. The hope is that it looks slightly different than phase 1 and phase 2, but as you zoom out, it sort of seems to fit pretty well between the two of them. Sort of transitioning some of the darker brick from phase 1 with the lighter brick from phase 2, but trying to play with the colors a little bit so it doesn't just look like one big structure. So it's a little bit more architecturally interesting. So it feels like there's setbacks and different colors and things like that. This is just another street view as you're looking at the project from the corner of Surf and 17th. Here's one just down the street. Again, looking towards phase 1 in the distance there. And you will notice here too, everything is obviously elevated, lobbies, everything are elevated off the street for flood purposes. In the storefront, something that we've spent a bit of time exploring, which I'll show you a little bit more of coming up. Again, these are just different views. We wanted to do something that sort of played on some of the context in Coney Island for the storefront. This is something we're still working on because we're just getting through SDs and into DDs now. But again, we wanted it to look like a series of smaller storefronts. The space could be divided into larger, like 3 larger spaces or 4 larger spaces. But with the way the brick comes down and the way the storefront has different colors, we wanted to sort of, again, pay homage to some of the other retail and entertainment sites nearby. This is a view from the sidewalk. This does not show a canopy. We will be doing some sort of treatment like this, sort of, I don't know if it's going to be a marquee type thing yet. But that is where we are. So again, I want to be cognizant of time. The building in itself is about 430,000 square feet. We're still working on the layouts. This says 464 units. We're probably going to be programming some larger units for families. So I think when we do that, the count's probably going to be more like 430 units. Similar to phase 1, similar to phase 2. It will be 100% affordable. There will be retail along Surf Ave. There will be community facility mid-block. And part of the community facility use here is a space that's been designed for daycare. So what we did was we actually, inside the building, inside the courtyard, we designed an outdoor space so that the daycare can both have indoor and outdoor space. There will be on-site parking. We will be doing solar. We will have green roofs here, and other sort of sustainable design features, efficient HVAC systems, all that kind of thing. The level of affordability here is still being worked on. We expect, though, that there will be a number of units, probably, over half, probably more like 60%, that will be low-income units, below 50 or 60% of AMI, with the rest being above 70, 85, maybe 90% AMI units. Part of the thinking here was phase one, we had a few 80 and 90% AMI units. Phase two, we did a little bit more. In phase three, we want to do a little bit more as well. So this is really where we are. Our hope is to break ground, potentially doing site work early next year. This is a brownfield site, so there's a lot of remediation that has to be done. So our hope is that we go in early next year, start the remediation, clean the site, and that we would close with HPD in the city June of next year. So effectively a year from now. And that's really where we are. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but wanted to share this with you. Wanted to give everyone a chance to comment on it since the design's still somewhat early. So that's kind of it. So I sort of open it up to questions or the group.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we definitely, the community board, would love to partner with you guys in the fall with phase two, so that we can get more people down local. So that I think that would be a good thing to work on with the housing committee. So put that in the back of your head, Pat and Tatiana, and we'll work on that. But we have two people who raised hand, Sanji and then Craig. Sanji first.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, great presentation, Wen. You already answered one of my questions regarding the solar panels. So you will be is it already in phase one? Since that's complete, is there any solar panels in that?
I believe we have them on all sites. We have, I don't know how many, I can't speak to sort of the amount we have on phase one. Phase two will be a fairly substantial solar panel sort of array. And whatever other space there is either amenity space or green roof.
Okay. And regarding the retail space, are there any, it's a lot of square feet.
So
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's about 11,000 square feet between the retail and the community facility. We expect the daycare to probably take up 5,000 or 6,000 square feet of that. So probably about half of it.
For a daycare?
For daycare, yeah. It's one of the things that we've heard for many years that would be nice to have, in the neighborhood. That's one of the things. Yeah.
So the daycare will be for the residents only?
No. Totally open to the public. This will not be a building amenity. It'll be open to the public. So we want to bring a daycare operator in to operate a daycare that will be open to the public.
That's awesome. And the community room, is that a separate area?
Yeah, so we'll have in this building, well, let me just speak to phase two. I think it'll be similar here. For the residents, we have sort of like a lounge space, community room. We have a kids playroom. We have a gym. And then we have other just sort of like flex space. So we have a
Nice. And what about outside organizations and schools and community groups that need space for like meetings? Will that be available to them?
We haven't programmed that into this. With phase 2, at least, we have been working with HHC to the IDG Center. We're going to be we're moving it from phase 3 to phase 2. They're talking about expanding in phase 2. We've been talking to community groups, nonprofits, about taking the remainder of the community facility space in phase 2. We're certainly open to it. I mean, but we haven't programmed anything that is exclusively available for just the community at large to sort of utilize for meetings and things like that.
Yeah, that would be a great addition. You know, can definitely help a need in the community.
Okay.
Is there anyone that we could follow up with regarding community space?
Yeah, so what I'll do, some of you might remember Eric Woodland. So he's our director of community engagement. And he's the right guy to talk to. So maybe what I can do is either through Eddie or if anyone's interested, maybe Eddie can share my email with you. And then I'm happy to sort of connect you guys and to start a dialogue there. I think any ideas you have, any insight is always helpful, because, you know, we again recognize that we're not there every day, and to have the input of you folks is really important to us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for welcoming us in the planning. It sounds like a great second stage 2. We look forward to it.
Thank you.
All right, so we have next is Craig, Alan, and Angela.
Thank you. Thanks, Wynn. This is very exciting. Since you don't live here, you may not know Surf Avenue can be a bit of a vulnerable space, especially during the off season. And so one idea that I hope you'll consider is not using the solid roll down gates as security devices, but rather open mesh gates, something that would allow light to permeate the sidewalk area. That would enhance the public safety for the sidewalk and the pedestrians passing by when the stores are closed, especially. In addition, stormwater retention is really important. So instead of just traditional tree pits, if you can turn them into bioswales or some form of green infrastructure for stormwater, on-site stormwater retention, that would be useful. In addition, I'm sure that you're going to have secure bicycle parking for residents. Public bicycle parking on the sidewalk area would also be helpful, so that they're not just chained willy-nilly here and there. And lastly, as far as the phase 3 site goes right now, it could use a bit of TLC. Could you show the neighborhood some love, some housekeeping there? The perimeter fencing, the weed overgrowth, the litter condition, that needs to be regularly maintained. So if there's some way that you can get out there regularly to take a look at it, it needs help right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. The storefront roll down gates, definitely stormwater retention. I know that in the engineering there is, we've planned certain things. I will follow up and let you know exactly what that is. I can't speak to it tonight, but also public bike parking. I totally get that. I need to talk with our head of pre-construction who deals with DOT, but maybe we can coordinate with them as we're doing our builder pavement plan to put in some of those stanchions with sort of the hoop on them that you can actually chain up to them, or something like that. We can definitely do that. And then for as far as site conditions, so the site currently that's parking, so phase 3, there would be parking, and then there's some probably construction material that's stored there now.
Yeah, it's a staging area.
Yeah, exactly. And that one you're saying is dirty. Okay.
Yeah.
Our guys are out there every day, so I will speak to them about that, and they'll definitely clean it up.
Thank you.
if there's any way possible to do it before this Saturday, because this Saturday is Mermaid Parade.
Yeah, definitely be done before Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Next, we have is Alan, Angela, and then Jeff.
Hi, good presentation. I look forward to having another property on the block. 450 units, how many parking spaces?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it's probably around 100. It depends on sort of the number of units and then the level of affordability. Usually the lower income units, there isn't a parking requirement with them. So I would expect that our requirement would be something more like 75. We typically do more than the requirement. So here I believe it's probably more like 100. But I can get back to you with the exact number.
You don't need to, but I think if you asked anybody who lived in Coney Island, one of the things that they would say is we need more parking. And although I understand and I appreciate that you're putting in parking for those residents, but the more parking you put in, you can monetize it. There are a lot of people who need parking and want to avoid, particularly during the summer, the fight for parking spots. And sticking on that topic, but the last thing I'd like to mention is, again, I understand it's below income and housing, affordable housing, but if you are going to put in 75, 100, 200 parking spots, please consider putting in EV charging units. That is the difference between someone leasing or buying their next car that would be an EV as opposed to gas. I know that from personal experience.
I appreciate
Even
that.
if you put in 25 of those units, that gives 25 people the excuse to not buy a gas car.
Yep. Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah. We it's funny, it's clearly we've owned these properties now for it's probably close to 7 or 8 years, maybe even longer. And the parking, especially I know in sort of the summer months, the on season, the beach season, parking is crazy down there. And we've heard people say to us before, we should consider doing more parking. So I haven't spent a ton of time thinking about it, but I will.
Yeah, and again, put it into your business model. Again, any that you put in, even if your residents in that building don't need it, you'll be able to monetize, and that'll be a revenue source for you.
Yeah, the only I will definitely look at, and just so you understand as I do it, the only challenges are it means that the parking is up level, which means we might lose units on the second floor, so we have to do a structured parking. So it just becomes, it's really a cost exercise. So let me look at it, and I'll certainly report back next time I see you what I found, and we can have a discussion about it.
Thank you. Thanks for considering that.
Next, we have Angela, Jeff, and then Christopher.
Hi. Yes, my question is, it was about parking too as well, but you already answered it extensively. So my next question is about the design. You said it's in process. You're still in process of designing, and it's kind of still in flux. You showed a few options. However, those few options, maybe they are not the best options you have. What I just like to say about the Coney Island, we have a plenty of examples of bad design from the time of Robert Moses, because it was we want affordable housing, but we don't want it to look cheap. We don't want to look something odd. We like to bring Coney Island a little bit up, like next level up. And even you don't have to invest much, but please take care of the design. And when you're back in September, show us what is it you're going to plan to build. That will be great. Are you showing right now? Right. This kind of concept, I mean, right. Maybe it's very avant-garde. I personally don't get it, but maybe I'll grow into it. Not big fan of that particular design, especially. It looks very patchy to me, but that's up to community to decide, right?
No, listen, I appreciate that. And I know even when we're designing something internally, certain people like it, certain people don't, you know, any building we design. So there's always a bit
Right.
of that.
But mhm.
But I think the point I would make is number one, even though this is affordable housing, it's certainly not cheap in any way. This is all, you know, masonry, brick, high quality build. Clearly there is a limit to how much we can spend, but you know, making sure that it doesn't look cheap, doesn't feel cheap, you know, doesn't look like some of the things that Robert Moses did, you know, many years ago. That is certainly not what we're here to do. So this will continue to evolve a little bit. This is a concept. It'll look probably somewhat similar to this, but I think it will continue to evolve as we go through the design process. So I appreciate that feedback. We will do our best, but certainly we want it to look good.
All right, I have a second part of my question, very quick. The greenscape, are you adding some trees and tree pits? That's nice. Would you consider to add some green space open for public? Maybe a little square, a little nook, a little mini green island.
Yeah,
Or a playground,
Oh, playground, yeah, fantastic.
Ooh, a
Something,
playground sounds nice.
something for
A pool.
community, something open for public, right?
Right. So I would love to do all that. There is sort of a general limit to what we can do as far as taking the space and creating like public squares and things like that. Part of how we will address that, clearly the sidewalk, we want it to be nice. We want it to be, you know, have trees, and we want it to have maybe even seating opportunities, things like that. But we're also here, the thing that we have to deal with is zoning. So there isn't a sort of an unlimited ability to sort of like push and move walls and create spaces. There are things like street walls we have to worry about, compliance with those sorts of things. But I do think, you know, for instance, the daycare, the reason we carved out and did that additional sort of open space adjacent to it is so that it will ultimately be a daycare that's open to the public, and hopefully a bit more of a community amenity than it is. It's really not going to be as much a building amenity. So we are conscious of that. I just don't want to promise anything I can't deliver. And I think there's a limit to sort of what we can do. So I don't want to, we will do the best we can, but I don't know how far that can go.
Okay, thank you. Just add more trees then. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next we have is Jeff, Christopher, and then Tatiana.
Yeah. Hi, Wynn. I just want to get on the environmental end. You mentioned that it's a brownfield remediation. Have you filed already with New York State DEC on this? And is it a voluntary or what's going on? And what was there before?
Yeah, so it is voluntary. We have not filed officially yet. Some of you might have seen there's been testing going on the past couple of weeks. So we did original tests about a year ago, I would say, and we went and spoke to DEC, showed them what we found. They said, "Yeah, looks good." You know, I think there used to be a dry cleaner. There used to be things like that, certain uses that were consistent with brownfield sites. But we also determined that we had to go back and do additional testing to really hone in on where the contamination is on the site. So one of the other things we did, because the IDA Center is open and operating, and we had to coordinate with them, and we took some samples around their site as well. So it's a long way of saying, now that we have the testing, once we have those results, we'll go back and talk to DEC and hopefully get the official thumbs up that the site does qualify, and then we would submit our application. So right now we're working on our remedial action plan and everything that would sort of come right after submitting a formal application.
Okay, thank you very much. And all this will be posted on the site, on the website?
Yeah. I would expect it would be. There will be, you know, public comment with this stuff, and like any brownfield site, but obviously listen, we obviously own 3 buildings here, including this one. So if there's anything that you guys have, or Jeff, if you have any questions, just reach out to me directly. I'm happy to update you on where we are or share information.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have is Christopher and then Tatiana.
Good evening. I'm actually very glad to see more of those apartments being built, as well as you've been putting a lot of low income in, and I definitely seen a lot of accessibility going into these apartments. I do want to thank you because seeing more people want to move to Coney Island and get the chance to enjoy the culture of, seeing the baseball games, they can see the Coney Island fireworks and be more active in their community. So I do want to thank you so much for this, because part of this, as my other hat being on as vice chair of the Brooklyn DD Council, because you do have 3 agencies that are part of going into those apartments called Home of Your Own. And at least it's giving the families or the person with a disability a chance to live, getting a person a chance to live in a place that they can feel safe to go to and not far from a hospital as well. So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you, Christopher. That means a lot to us. I mean, we are primarily affordable housing developers. We do some other stuff, but this is really what we've done for the last 40 years. So hearing that makes us very happy. So thank you.
And I do definitely want to thank you, because at least I see the accessibility signage. So at least, I don't have to answer that, because you guys already did it before anyone else does. So thank you for making sure the signages are truly ADA accessible. Thank you.
And similar to what I said to Jeff, if you notice anything or, you have any questions or concerns, because Eddie knows this, email me, call me. We'll take care of it. We feel, we're very strong with this. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
So next we have is Tatiana.
Good evening. Thanks for coming. So I think affordable housing is needed in the area. I actually wanted to ask about accessible entrances on the ADA. So I saw the staircases on the blueprints, but I didn't see the ramps.
Yep.
Will there be any ramps for
There
wheelchair-bound tenants?
absolutely will be. Yep. Let me just see if I can pull something up. Hold on, give me 1 second. And that's something that, because of the flood considerations, is something that we had to think about and make sure we did correct way. So seeing if I can show you a quick sketch of some of the options.
And while you're looking for this, I'm also interested in security cameras around the building. Will you have security cameras?
We 1000% will have security cameras outside the building and inside the building. So that's something that in all of our buildings we have, because we want to ensure that the people that live there feel safe. So yeah, 100%, and they'll be throughout the building. They'll be monitored. They'll be on DVR. So that is something that we feel very strongly about.
Okay, and going back to what Angela was saying, that we want something nice over here. It's going to be across from MCU Park. Will there be any terraces or rooftop openings?
There will be. So we will have, just like on phase 1 and phase 2, we will have rooftops that look out over the ballpark and over the water. They'll be open to all the residents. And as you know, it's a really beautiful view. So that's something that we spent a lot of time on too, just because, we wanted to sort of maximize that. So there definitely will be.
Okay, good. Okay, and In terms of the percentages, like what percentage of units will be set aside for mobility impaired and vision impaired people?
Usually, I'm not an architect, but typically it's at least 15. It's at least 15% of the units. So I would assume here it'd be the same thing. I don't know the exact answer, but it would be at least that, whatever the minimum is, and I think it's 15%.
Thank you. Will there be preference for community board residents?
Yeah, like any lottery, there will be. There'll be a community board preference, but as most of us know, it's not nearly enough. So what we try to do is we try to sort of partner with community boards prior to the marketing. Again, make sure everyone knows about the opportunity, make sure everyone starts with their paperwork early, make sure that everyone knows how to get on Housing Connect, so that when the opportunity actually presents itself, they can get their application in. So there will be a preference, but our hope is that some of these efforts we'll do with you will actually maybe even result in a higher community board occupancy.
Okay, and what type of tax exemption do you anticipate to receive?
Jesus.
Typically, these are 100% affordable, so they're usually 420C.
Is it different from 421A?
Significantly different. Yep.
Yeah.
So 421A, which obviously sort of no more, that requires you to have at least 30% affordable. 420C is 100% affordable. So it's an exemption that exists for only 100% affordable projects.
Okay. So I can see the drawing right now that's showing a ramp, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that they've
Okay.
sort of worked on this. My head of pre-con would know better, and he'd probably be upset at me for even talking about it because I'm not qualified to do it. But I know that it was part of the thinking and something that we really considered, because you are dealing with a change here, as you're dealing with elevating everything above the floodplain. So we have looked at how to get ramps in and make it easy for people. So this is just a concept. Evolved a bit, but
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. The last speaker we have is Gloria.
Oh.
You have to unmute Gloria. Excuse me. Go ahead, Gloria.
These buildings that's coming up in Coney Island is the same buildings, but different design throughout the city. If I'm correct? Could you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Gloria. What do you mean by that?
Okay, from Manhattan, going from the Bronx all the way to Brooklyn or all the 5 boroughs, buildings that's coming up, where I don't see tall buildings coming up in Queens, but the other boroughs, I see tall buildings that's affordable. Now, a lot of people, what I've been seeing, and I'm going straight to the point, I've been trying to study this since the 70s when I used to work on a program at City Planning Commissioner's office. The bottom line is a lot of people that's in between the incomes. Either you make too much or you make too less. Coney Island and Brighton Beach, especially the part of Coney Island going towards Seagate, it's a lot of HPD buildings out there. A lot of people that's in the neighborhood are eligible for Section 8. People like myself and other people that might be in between, or because of our income is not eligible for those things. And then the gentrification, which I've been seeing, and I personally don't like it, but there's nothing that I could do. Every time the city improves the neighborhoods, some people say some people got to move out, some people can't afford it. So I want the city to get to the point and say what they actually doing. Now, I came on late, but I like the fact about the solar thing. that's another thing. And I heard something towards the end with Con Edison, where people don't understand. We moving forward to the future. We're not supposed to be going backwards. So the point that I'm making is that when they start opening up the doors for people to move in, they need to get straight to the point, because there's a lot of things that I don't like, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, Gloria, I appreciate that. I would say on the affordability component,
Right.
that's why you'll see here, I mean, I don't know if everyone can see this. This is proposed. This is not set in stone. It's an open conversation that we're having with the city, but we're
Yes.
trying, we try to spread out the affordability. So anyone who's formerly homeless or very low income to sort of moderate income has the opportunity to live here. So that is part of why we have so many income bands here, right? Because we do understand a lot of people fall between them, but you'll have marketing bands. So if you're, let's say there's a 50% AMI unit, that marketing band might go up to 60 and 60 to 70. And, you know, so we're trying to do it so people don't fall between the cracks.
I understand.
And so we give everyone an opportunity. Listen, is it perfect? No, nothing's perfect, but it's pretty good. And this is based on, we've done a lot of units in the city and we've run across this.
I know.
And so we're trying
to.
Yeah.
The point that I'm making, I'm 100% a New York. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, Williamsburg to be exact. I've been seeing this since way back then about buildings, development, gentrification, this whole thing. This is not new to me. I'm 68 years old. Like I said, I've been here my whole life. And when things have to be done in certain parts of the city, it gets done. So we going through the motion and everything. And I'm glad that you talking about the progress that's being made in that district, in our district. But like I said, I'm old school when it comes to this. What's going to happen, going to happen. If it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen.
I hear you. I understand gentrification. You see it throughout the city.
Right.
Our three buildings are 100% affordable, which
Yes.
is the anti-gentrification. So, but I hear you. Things are changing. New buildings go up. Neighborhoods change. But at least what we're trying to do is offer people high quality housing and long-term housing, and try to get as many of the local people into this housing. But I hear you. Your point is well taken. But
thank you so much. And I'm sorry to sound the way that I'm sounding, but thank you for listening to me.
No, I get it, Gloria. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to move along because Tatiana, do you have something that we have to say?
One more question I forgot to ask. What would be included in the units and in the common areas? So for instance, will they have washer and dryers, dishwasher, laundry room, lockers, storage, bike room?
Yeah, potentially all of the above. Washers and dryers in the units, I don't know off the top of my head. There'll certainly be laundry rooms in the building, multiple. There will be storage, there'll be bike storage, there will be lounge, there'll be a gym, there'll be a kids room, there'll be roof decks. There'll be a lot of that stuff. I don't know off the top of my head whether every unit will have a washer or dryer or not, though. That's the only question I don't know.
Dishwasher?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. All right. So, Wayne, thank you very much for that presentation, and we look forward to working with you as it gets closer to phase 2 being open for the public. We would like to welcome you back again, and doing so for the next time, hopefully in person. Because something like this definitely needs to be seen, and you can ask questions back and forth then. All right. Is there any other thing on the old business, new business? And if there isn't any, thank you very much, guys, for coming to the meeting. Sorry that it was a long meeting. Certain things need to be answered. we will bring this to the full board for the carbon neutrality. But this here doesn't need a vote. So this was a presentation. So you guys have first hand of seeing the phase 3. All right, guys. Thank you again, and have a good night.
And so
Thank you all.
sorry.
Great meeting, Mark. Thank you so much.
Good night. Thank you all.
Good night, guys.
Is they finished? What time is it?